How big can I get my heart to be?
Thought Media Network proudly presents
How much love can I get flowing out of me?
The Real Talk Sisters. Deep, unfiltered, soulful conversations with Reverend Dr. Pjae Stanley, Reverend Kim Andrews, and Reverend Melinda Wood Allen.
How big can I get my heart to be?
Join us for Real Talk on Real Issues, Tuesdays, 2 p.m. Central, 1 o'clock Mountain. And now, let's join the Real Talk Sisters.
How big can I get my heart to be?
Hello, love.
Hi, my
Good to
friend.
see
How are
you.
you?
It's a good day. You know what? Anytime you wake up and you're upright and you're breathing, it's a good day. The bar is low for a good day. It's glad to be here.
Yes, glad to be here.
You know what I mean?
Glad to be seen, not viewed. That's what somebody
You
said.
I love it. I love it. I'm using that. I love it.
Seen, not viewed. I
Being
thought
not viewed. I love it.
resonates. Yes.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Uh,
I am Reverend Kim Andrews from Unity Spiritual Center in Sac City, Texas.
and I'm Reverend Dr. Pjae Stanley from Harmony Spiritual Center in Fort Worth. Thank you all so much for being here now or viewing us later, and whenever you have an opportunity to be with us, the Real Talk Sisters.
Our friend and the third of the Real Talk Sisters, Melinda Wood Allen's not with us today, or maybe she'll check in later
We'll
if
see.
she gets done with what she's doing in time. And so we'll miss her. And we love it when the three of us, there's a special energy when the three of us are in the room together.
Yeah.
We will certainly miss her and her wisdom and insight, which is deep and wide. Yes.
Exactly. So
Today
our
we are talking about, are we triggered or response abled?
yes, and I don't know. We came up with this topic because for a number of reasons. Um, for me, it was that, I was, so a couple months ago, triggered, if you want to use that word, um, by this issue that happened for me, and just could not pull myself out of it. And I had to come to my partners in believing, Reverend Kim and Reverend Melinda, to help me essentially put my foot down and stop kicking myself for not responding the way I would normally do and responding like a crazy person. And just really taking a look at what that was about. What that was about, because I felt really out of myself, out of who I normally am, how I would normally respond, and I was absolutely reacting to something. And so that was, I think, one of the few times of it that's happened. And so just that was worth me certainly taking a look at for a while to see exactly how that happened and what can be done about that, if anything. And it's worth talking about because that seems to be a word that's being bandied about quite a bit. And so I thought it's worth investigating just to see what do we mean and what it is and what we can do and just however we want to approach that topic today.
I did some quick research, Googled it, and went to mibluedaily.com. And this is what they said about triggered. They said the word triggered has historically been reserved for use in mental health circles. A trigger is a painful, overwhelming memory tied to the senses of someone who has experienced significant trauma and may be prone to panic attacks or be diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. In recent years, the term has taken on concerning new meanings. The term is incorrectly used to indicate feelings of mild discomfort and to mock people who they perceive as overly sensitive. It is often used as a politically charged insult. And I think that's kind of one-sided, I originally thought, because I know people who are who use the word in reference to themselves. It's not somebody hurling it at someone else. In fact,
Right.
rarely experienced that, but I do
I've
know
never.
a lot of people and a lot of
Yeah.
people on social media who just say, I'm triggered by that. I
Or
was
you
triggered.
triggered me.
Or
Yeah,
you
that
triggered
triggered
me.
me.
So I hear people using it most often, I would say 99% of the time, in reference to themselves and what they're going through.
Yeah.
They say here further, when a person who has dealt with trauma is triggered, their body prepares to fight, flee, or freeze. The cascade of chemicals in their brain can cause autonomic instability, resulting in flashbacks, increased hypertension, a faster heartbeat, chest pain, or shortness of breath, physical manifestations of anxiety provoking events. The brain also pauses some of its normal functions while addressing the threat, sometimes affecting short-term memory. But that's using it for someone who has had significant traumatic
Right.
experiences.
Yes.
Not, when we go out and somebody says something that just kind of rubs you the wrong way,
Yes.
which
Yes.
can happen often in
Yes.
life.
Yes. Yes.
Often.
Because who's talking? Who's talking? Thinking about you. Most people are talking, thinking about themselves and how they're observing the world, or how the world doesn't conform to their thoughts about how the world is supposed to be, or any number of things.
Mhm.
And so it's very rare that a person is talking about seeing a triggering event in someone else. Certainly because I have been around, raised by and around a lot of military people. I have had cause to see PTSD in a number of people, and they handle it very differently because, well, I'm putting I say because I'm putting a cause on it that's from my observation, not necessarily what they would say is the issue, but from the people that I know, they don't want to. It's embarrassing for them to be triggered, and so rather than that, they turn to other things, drinking,
Mhm.
drugs, something to relax that, so that they don't actually appear to be triggered. But that in itself, I think, is a clue. There's
Mhm.
something going on. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've been triggered as a result of being sexually assaulted as an adult. And the perpetrator was from Sierra Leone and had a
Mm,
very recognizable accent. And so when I
mm,
heard similar accents in the early years after that sexual assault, that triggered me. And there were most of, I would say, each of those instances, I did freeze, and I was a bit dysfunctional for a number of hours after that.
yeah.
I know that certain scenes in movies
Mm-hmm.
would
Mm,
trigger me, and I would have to leave the room. And sometimes
yeah.
I would cry,
Yeah.
and I would have this episode, and then within a certain amount of time, I would calm down and come back to myself. But after
Right.
I went to counseling, all of that subsided. It went away.
Uh,
And so now I am no longer triggered by those kinds of things. And there just may be times when I choose not to watch a particular scene in a movie. So I may leave the
correct.
room, get something to drink, and I'll come back.
Right.
But I don't
Correct.
I don't have a triggered response or reaction to things.
Yeah.
So
I think.
uh,
Yeah.
that's how I knew I had really made some progress
Yeah.
in my healing from that particular traumatic event in my life. So I know what it's like to be triggered, and I know it's not a small thing at all. I mean,
Yes.
it was
Yes.
huge, and
Yeah.
it disrupts life in a
It
huge way.
does.
Yes.
It really does. It really does. And I know, now that you're talking about that, one of the coping mechanisms that I think you have when you are younger and you don't have control over a situation, because there's someone older, or a guardian or whatever, over you, that's doing the thing, and so you don't have any control over that, and so you create these coping mechanisms that you don't even realize you have. But yeah, the walking out of movies, of seeing some scene that that brings back a memory. Um, that certainly has happened, and yeah, tears flowing, and you're like, what is this about? I can remember, I think I've shared with you and Melinda and possibly some other people that there was a gentleman that I just could not stand. He had never done anything to me, nothing. He just was a coworker, and I had to just ask him, "What is wrong with you? Why is it every time you see this person, you're upset?" And you know, and just had to reach back into my old memory and think, "Oh, okay, I see what's going on here. This is a part of my history, and this person reminds me
Mhm.
of that history." And so I don't know that I did get some counseling, and again, only after the my life was had gotten so terrible, and the coping that I was used to doing wasn't working.
Yeah.
And that's when I had to say, all right, you got to do something about this, because this is, you're going downhill. You're going down.
Mhm.
Those coping mechanisms are no longer working. So, so we know it's real. I think is the only point that I'm making. It seems like you're making as well. That we know that there's triggers and that there's reasons for them. Um, the 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 topic for me, triggered or response abled, is because the triggering, or the seeing that guy, or seeing a movie and responding, makes me feel outside of myself, makes me feel like I am not being the person I want to be. And so
Mhm.
I wanted to know, how do I go from being, and this is on the resolution end. You know, you may not be even recognizing that you have triggering events, but if you're on the other side and you do, and you want to become more responsive, meaning coming from what you decide to come from, as opposed to coming from something someone else is doing.
Mhm.
That's where this idea came from for me. Was, what does it take? What did it take? What does it take to be um, able to respond the way you want, as opposed to being automatically triggered by something? I think that's kind of like a new thought situation, in that, you know, what part of it, what part of your life can you control or not, and not necessarily control, but say yes to, and say no to, so that you are living the life you want to live, and not something from your past, or something from someone who is no longer in your life, or any number of things outside of you. That's where this is for me, where this topic
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think as I did that little bit of reading, that I wanted to make sure that we were um, representing the word triggered properly. And I think for
yes,
those who are truly triggered, who have experienced a significant traumatic event in their lives, that the best thing is to seek help. And
absolutely.
because I needed help, and it does disrupt life, and you are not your true self when
You're
you're,
not.
because you are in flight and uh, fright and freeze.
Hmm.
And
Yes,
we do need help. I knew when I was triggered that I needed help, and I sought counseling because
yeah,
I could not move for a period of time. I was frozen.
yes,
And frozen, it happened at work one day, frozen at work, sitting in the corner, afraid to go outside. Uh,
amazing.
so it was, yeah, brought the trauma back in that moment, even though it had been a couple of years since the event. So,
Yes, yes,
yes, the best advice we can give there is to seek help, a mental health professional, a group, support group, something like that.
yeah,
But for those, our basic work here today is to talk about those who are not triggered, but are experiencing some discomfort about things in the world. Like if you're on social media and somebody says something, or voted for the person you didn't vote for, and they say something that angers you or brings up sadness, or you're
yes.
resentful, or something like that. And then you are reactionary, and you're just all of a sudden now you're typing stuff back to them, and you got this back and forth going on, which you see often
uh,
on
yes,
social media, especially now after the election. A lot of this is coming up. And so
yes,
um, uh, we need to find something, some way, if you want to not be caught in that kind of a drama cycle,
Correct.
some way to go from being reactionary to being responsive, to being
Yeah.
response-abled, like we have in our title today.
Yeah.
And the
Yes.
operative word is to respond, not react.
Exactly.
Respond.
Exactly it. Exactly. And I'm glad you brought it up because, uh, for me, the election was just an election. I think because of being in New Thought, of being on this path for a long time, of doing what's mine to do and not getting involved in other things, looking at an experience and not making a story out of it. It's simply an experience, which
Mhm.
is what the election is. The election it's a democratic experience. And it's been in this country a long time. It has survived, and it's a work in progress. It will always be a work in progress because everyone gets to talk about it. Everybody gets to put their feelings into it. Everybody gets to vote, to fight, to say no, this is not okay. Yes, this is okay. And as long as we're always doing that, it'll keep going, back and forth in terms of how we're going to react, how we're going to be a country together, in what we have called the whole time that I've known it, a melting pot. But what is a melting pot but a whole bunch of ideas and
Mhm.
and and and, and cultures and ways of being? And then how do we do that? Honoring who we are and honoring the process that we set up, meaning that everybody gets a vote, everybody gets to be heard. And so, yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because it's just there's been a lot of back and forth with people just moaning and carrying on. I'm just thinking, okay, all right, let's back it up and think about what good happened here. What good is happening here? And I think in terms of being response abled, that's what we get to do. It's like, well, what did you want? What is yours now within the system that we're living in, that we're doing it within who you are, not even just the country system, but yours as a human being. Like, what system are you working with, and how do you want to respond? Do you want to just be going around reacting to what someone else is doing, so it's their life that we're living, or do we want to be response able, so it's our life we're living? And to me, that's the difference between deciding how I want to be and reacting to how someone else is. That's living outside of me. I don't wish to do that. That's why I'm in this. That's why I'm in this the spirituality, so that I
Yeah.
can live. You know.
Yeah, being reactionary is that split second thing that happens. The reptilian brain kicks in
Yes.
because
Yes.
is perceiving a threat,
Yes.
and
Yes.
here, and that was necessary for our survival, early humanoids, and that was necessary because we got saber-toothed tigers and other threats running around, other
Exactly.
tribes, other peoples, other animals. And so in order to survive, we have this reptilian brain that would just protect us. So we have our brain is always looking for cues and perceiving things, billions of things that we are
Yes.
consciously not aware of. And so
Yeah.
when we get dug in, we're in a certain mindset, then our brain in this day and time that doesn't have to worry about saber-toothed tigers and something coming at you with a spear or something else. That brain is still working overtime
Yeah.
because we are
Yeah.
either in anxiety or we're tired or have dug into our positions. I love
Mm.
that you said, it used to be that we just recognized that there were so many different people in this country, different cultures, different mindsets, and there was just a great number of ideas out there. Well, now we are very, I don't know why the word bipolar came up, but we've got two stances, and a lot of people are dug into one or the other,
Yeah.
very dug in, and they don't want to hear anything in the middle, nor do they want to hear anything from the other side. And so
Yes.
there's a lot of hurling insults, a lot of things have gotten personal. People are no longer talking about ideas and policies. They are calling each other names. They are taking everything personally. So I'm so glad
Yes.
in the next few weeks, we'll be talking about the 4 agreements,
Yeah.
which will
Oh
be
my
a
gosh.
nice
Yes.
segue from today's conversation. And
Absolutely.
People are so dug in, they're just unwilling to hear other people. They don't ask questions. There's no curiosity
They're not
anymore.
curious. Yes.
They don't
Yes.
care anymore. They just figure, I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah.
So you shut up. I don't want to hear from you. So much so that we want to quiet the other person, and we don't even want you to speak or have a voice anymore.
It's amazing. It's
It's
absolutely
amazing.
amazing. It's just absolutely shocking. And I just think, well, how did this place get founded? And we're going to go ahead and take a little quick break and come back to talking about the founding of this country is based on the fact that we could have a voice.
Yes.
We didn't want to be, we didn't want to have the king or the queen telling us what to do and
That's
have
what they
no
came here
voice in
for.
anything.
Yeah.
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 So that's what we came here for. Yeah, exactly. So we'll come back and talk about that when we come back from the break.
And we're back.
So yeah, we had a wonderful on Thought Leader Thursday last month, or yeah, it was last month because we're in November here. And we had a great speaker, and she was originally she was talking about deconstructing othering. We're talking about they, them, the other guy, and she was talking about New Thought. She was going to send me her PowerPoint on some of the things that we had talked about, and I haven't gotten them yet, and so it would be perfect to talk about today. But essentially she was just talking about us as a spirituality and a group moving forward, New Thought, and that we are kind of getting caught up in the same and in that same thing with not coming together to say, well, what is who, how do we see all of it, and how do we then make a determination or decision based on everyone that's talking, everyone that has a
Mhm.
voice, which should be everyone. And when did we become so fearful that if we had a whole bunch of voices talking, we wouldn't be able to come to a decision that we could all majority? Now we're not going to all agree. We don't even all agree in a family, but we can all say, okay, all right, that's reasonable, and we can come to a reasonable decision. But without discourse, and how do we have discourse uh, if we deny the other person's right to be here, the other
Mhm.
person's right to speak, the other person's right to have an idea, and we don't even know what that idea is because we won't let them speak. So
Mhm.
where is this fear coming from of someone else's idea? Amazing.
Yeah, it's just gotten so inflammatory these days, and I think that's why uh, uh, we've gotten to a place where it feels like we can't do anything about it, and
We
yet
know that's not
I
true.
think we
We know
have
that's not
to
true.
have these conversations. I think we have to talk about it. I think we have to realize that perhaps we are in a place where we are unwilling to talk to others. And I remember going to an event where someone, it was billed as a place for discourse. And the moderator, the person who created the event and was the moderator of it, she started out open, and then all of a sudden, her voice started going up another octave, and she was shutting down people because she would not let one of the people who wanted to talk about an opposing view or something that opposed her view in particular. I don't know how many other people he represented in the room because she wouldn't let him speak, and she wouldn't let him. So she cut him off at every turn. So I thought, okay, we're already in trouble because we've lost a moderator who should have been modeling behavior for people.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so it ended up devolving into something else. And I think during the break I left because I thought this is not what I came here for.
It's
I'm
all
not here
discourse. Yeah.
for a fight, and I'm not here to watch other people getting shut down. And I'm
Right.
not going to be shut down, so I don't have time for this. I'm out of here.
Right.
I got better things to
Correct.
do. I could,
Yeah.
if I want to do that and be in that kind of a drama, I can do it at home and turn on TV. So,
We don't need to be. I don't need to be out and about spending my gas and all this type of thing for this. Not need to be here. And and what does true discourse look like? For me, and I'm asking you for you too. But for me, it takes suspending. It's suspending my thoughts or my beliefs to actually be open to hearing what you have to say and let you take it to the end. So what that's just it's one of those things that's actually difficult. Even if you're in a relationship, with someone that you love, to just shut down your side of the story so they can be completely and totally heard without you interpreting, without you having a comeback, without you responding. Just be open to what is and just be able to say, I hear you. I don't have any answers, but we begin by at least hearing. And we're not even doing that anymore. We're
we're
not
not
hearing. We're not hearing.
Yeah, because we're so dug in, and we're just ready to give our point of view, give our stance, and
Yeah.
let the other person know. And we've already assumed that they're wrong. We've already
Yeah.
assumed. We haven't asked any questions. And so I think there's a lack of curiosity. Nobody wants to get to a place of understanding, because why should I understand if I think you're deluded and stupid? There's
Correct.
nothing to
You
understand.
don't have anything to say. Right.
And I'm
Yeah.
not going to spend my time asking you any questions because I've already decided you're wrong. And I've already decided that you can't teach me anything.
Yes. Oh, I love it. I love what you're saying. You're exactly correct. I've already decided all of those things. All of those
And so
things. I was thinking it. Yeah.
reactionary. As soon as the other person starts talking, like, no, you can't do that. And yeah, you're wrong for that. You're wrong for that. Instead of saying, tell me more about that. Where did that come from? Is that something you got from your parents? Did you grow up in a household where those were some of your principles? Does that come from your religion? And tell me more about your beliefs. And yeah, so I can understand.
How does that work? How does it work for you?
How does that work?
Tell
How
me
does
how
that
it works.
govern your life? How does that govern how you vote? Does it govern how you vote? Did you always vote like that? Did you start out here and evolve? Because I know my beliefs have evolved quite greatly from when I first started voting until now. And so it's interesting. We've lost the will to understand each other and to, like you said, to hear each other and just have a conversation and talk calmly and ask questions and enjoy it and think, I didn't know that. I'm going to investigate that a little more. Never heard that before. Let me look
Never
that
heard that before. Right.
Yeah.
Never heard that. How does that work? How does that work?
How does
Tell
that
me
work?
more. How does that work? And with such a with a loving, interested heart that you really want to know more. Tell me, because I care for you. Because here's the thing. And this is what I say. So we say, but it's how I live. That we're all individualized expressions, and that love is transformational. Unconditional love is transformational. If I believe that, and I do, I don't just believe it, I know it, then it starts with me hearing what you have to say. It has to. I have to be able to hear what you have to say and love you through, even if you say something that I am diametrically opposed to, because I love you and because you have a right to believe what you believe. Just because you believe that doesn't mean I have to believe it, but I certainly want to understand and know you better. So it starts there with me loving you and wanting to know you better. And I was thinking about a friend of mine, and we get to in some discussion. It feels like when you don't want to, like someone's asking you to defend your choice of partner. How do you defend your choice of partner? You love who you love, and and why should I have to defend my choice of partner? So I think when in this age, in this way that we're doing it, I don't think people are asking real questions to each other about help. Tell me so that I can understand. It's more like, well, defend your position. How can
Mhm.
you believe this?
Mhm.
And now it's antagonistic. And I'm thinking, well, I'm sorry. Uh, isn't it one person, one vote, whatever it is? And I don't need to defend how I feel about something. But if you really want to know, and I can tell that by the way you're asking the question, whether your heart is showing up or not, then I'll be more than willing to have that conversation. But if you ask that question in such a way that I feel like you're saying you're wrong, defend yourself. You obviously you're stupid. Uh,
Mhm.
Shut down. Ah, I'm out. You're not. That's not what's happening here. So, so I think that's part of where the speaker for Thought Leader Thursday was coming from in terms of new thought and us being this loving group.
Mhm.
Um, that this should be our position of just listening and saying, well, okay, tell me more. Tell me more. What does that mean to you in that loving way? Not tell me. What do you mean? What, none of
Mhm.
that. Just
And
talk to
we
me.
only start to go into defense when we know feel there's an offense.
Exactly.
We feel
Exactly.
like somebody's coming at us, so we have to go back at them. And now I have to defend myself when, yeah, why should, if there's real discourse, then nobody has to defend anything. We're just having a conversation and want to get to understanding each other. Even
Exactly.
if we don't end up agreeing, at
You we don't have
least
to
we
agree.
understand
Yeah.
where each one is coming from.
Exactly. Exactly. Victoria, we're talking about it's Thought Leader Thursday, I believe is what you're saying. I don't know what New Thought Tuesday is. Do you? No, I think it's Thought Leader Thursday, which happens. You can go on the ANTN website, antn.org, I think,
Yeah.
and sign up for that. It's and this week it's normally the fourth Thursdays, but it's going to be the third Thursday for this month and next month because of Christmas and Thanksgiving. And so we have great speakers that come and talk about moving around the new thought arena and hearing from different people and then coming to us with ideas about what's going on out there, certainly in new thought. Um,
And
but
that
we're
was
talking,
Reverend Deb Johnson who
yeah, it
was
was
on
Rev Deb,
last month,
Rev Deb.
correct? And
Mhm.
everything's on YouTube, is that correct?
Everything is on YouTube on the
Yep.
New Thought Media YouTube channel. You can see all the ones that came before. You can see Rev Deb's talk
Mhm.
from
She
last
was
month as
wonderful.
well. Yeah,
She was wonderful,
yeah, she
by
was
the way.
awesome. She was awesome.
Yeah.
Um, and
And I
so,
think, go ahead.
no, I'll come back to it. I'm not going to forget it.
Part of our topic today is about being response abled, and so part of being able to respond is being open, because you can't respond unless you're open and you've slowed down and you're not in defense or offense mode. You're not dug into your own point of view or
Yeah,
your own stance. That you are willing to hear other people, but that means that we are relaxed. Maybe we need to
yes,
take a deep breath, even when we hear something that we disagree with, and we can feel our own hype starting to go up. We start to feel a little anger or resentment or something like that. Even if we just take a breath, and then we can slow down and our brain can clear, and then we're no longer perceiving threat. Then we can start
yeah,
asking questions. Then we can go into
exactly.
discourse. And you might even say, and I have in conversations, I know my husband and I go this, we say, I'm feeling some type of way about that. But please explain, and then you can keep working with your feelings. But I know my feelings are mine. They're not about you, the person who's talking to me.
Correct,
They're not
correct. That right
responsible for
there.
my feelings. I am.
Yes,
And so I
that.
need to police myself and do what I need to do to deal with my feelings. And most of the time, taking some deep breath helps. And then
It does.
I look at them and I say, okay, tell me more. Tell me more.
Yeah,
And then I can monitor my feelings or say, I'll take care of my feelings later. But in the meantime, I'm with someone who I'm not making responsible for how I feel. And I think
correct.
that's how we end up knocking heads with each other when we think we're in discourse, but we're actually in offense and defense and fighting with each other.
Exactly, exactly. And so I know I've shared this before, and I'm going to share it again because it's just such a great example. And it went on for years, years in a loving relationship. But I was raised in a family that walked around the elephant in the room. There was no elephant. There was no elephant. And so we were always tiptoeing around the elephant. And so by tiptoeing around, meaning not saying what was obviously going on, just acting like nothing was happening. And so I married a person who liked to talk about everything. Just always wanting to put things out, in the open. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to talk about what was happening in my own heart, what was happening with my own feelings. I didn't know how to do that. And he would always say, I'm not arguing with you. I'm not fighting with you. I'm on your side.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I just thought, I don't understand even that comment because I'm arguing for my point and you're arguing for your point. So how are you on my side? And so therein is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I was arguing and he was not. He was asking questions for clarity. And I felt like I had to defend my point.
Mm-hmm.
And after finally, he said it so much that just one day it fell on me. And I thought, oh, and I repeated exactly what he said. I said, you're on my side. And he goes, yeah, I am. And I got it. I understood that really he wasn't fighting with me. He was really just asking clarifying questions. What do you mean? Because he wasn't raised the way I was. Who is? Who's raised the way you are?
Yeah.
And so we say things assuming that everybody knows what you're talking about, but everybody isn't raised like you. Everybody doesn't have the same meaning from a word that you use or from a situation that they don't see it the same way. And so, in order for understanding, then there has to be the ability to speak about it, about whatever it is you're talking about, in a way that doesn't make you feel condemned. That is really just going for understanding, and that comes from a loving heart. I just need a curious heart,
Mm-hmm.
curiosity, and understanding. That's the bottom line. I'm not arguing with you. I don't even know what kind of side to be on because I don't understand what's happening here. So talk to me. Talk to
Yeah.
me. And we both have to be in a space where we feel like we're heard. If I talk to you, you're not using that information as uh, bullets or whatever against me. You are
Mm-hmm.
actually wanting to hear and use that information to understand me more, as opposed to using it to define how you said before. And before what you had said, it comes back to me as ammunition,
Mm-hmm.
to fit, and that's not what's happening. So this is the difference, Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I think being response able takes quite a bit of self-awareness
absolutely.
and self-responsibility, and not making others responsible for how we feel, and to like I said before, being willing to police ourselves and saying wherever this person is coming from has to do with them, their filter, their what we call in a class I'm taking AEPs. Uh, Already established premises. And we all have
That's
them.
right.
We all have our own
Absolutely.
biases. We have our own
Absolutely.
prejudices about things. And I'm not talking about prejudices
Mm-mm, mm-mm,
related to race or anything or ethnicity like
mm-mm.
that. We all have our biases that we prefer one thing over another. And because we're all complicated individuals. So I think when
Absolutely.
we step into any kind of a conversation or we hear something happening, you hear something on radio, we watch something on TV, you have to be aware that people are coming from a particular point of view, a particular mindset. And then we get to check in and say, okay, what is mine?
Right, right.
We don't,
Well, where am I
we don't have
showing
to
up
do that.
assuming, making,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Um,
one, go ahead. I'm going to take a break and I'll come back with this one. But go ahead and say what you said.
yeah, I think we're often just cut off. And sometimes I kind of wonder, you hear people say, I want to be around like-minded people. But if you always do that, then you get out of the habit of working towards understanding, because all you
Right.
want around are people who think like you and do things like you do.
Oh my stars.
And if so, then your life becomes insular. And that's when the othering happens. And that's
Yeah.
when we lose the ability to be response abled. We start losing that
Exactly.
because you don't have to respond anymore.
Right. You know,
And you don't,
we're all the
yeah,
same.
Yes.
And then you find really artificial stuff to not like about something, because we're going to do that as human beings. Even if you are all like-minded, you got to find something artificial. She has on blue, and everybody knows blue isn't the color for today. Whatever, something crazy. Anyway, we'll take a quick break and come back. And I want to talk about traffic as a trigger.
Oh, yes.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Are you still having trouble hearing me? Who's having trouble?
Now it's okay. It looks like I've got a glitch or a short in my wire to my speakers. So it's okay now. I jiggled the wire.
That's how we do it. Just jiggle the key. Just But
if I disappear all of a sudden, or you see a poof on the screen, you know it all went bad.
I was going to talk about traffic because I use traffic a lot. Because one of the things you said earlier was, you have to kind of know yourself. You have to do some work that needs to be done. And one of the quickest, easiest, continual ways for me to check in with myself as to what is going on is traffic. Because, I get on the freeway and someone's going slow, and I've just got all of these stories in my head about why this person's going slow. They're a jerk. You just wanted to get in front of me. Don't you have any place else to be? And I just go, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Pjae, that you have 4 lanes to get into. Why? Well, what's yours to do in this? And so I get to stop and hear myself, hear the talk that I have going on about total strangers that I have no idea what they're doing, where they're going, or whether they even see me, because they're in their own head about whatever they're doing and wherever they're going. And so it's just such a continual good way for me to check in and think, all right, it's not about you. It's not always about you. And what's yours to do in this? You could back off. You could just go around. You could just certainly stop the chatter going on in your head right now. So it's just such a great way to continue to check in and say that's just a possibility all the time, for us to be judgmental and to want things our way, and assuming that other people are bad or something's wrong with them because they're not doing it, whatever it is, our way.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. I know when I started meditating, and I was in that daily practice, that enabled me to be far more response-abled than anything else. Because for me, meditation seemed to increase the amount of time between an incident and my reaction. All of a sudden, even though there was no more time, it felt like there was more time. And so that enabled me to think, to truly hear what was being said to me, and to check in with myself, and then speak if I was led to speak, or or not flip somebody the bird in traffic or whatever, or hurl some kind of insult at whoever it was. And so spiritual practice has really helped me with this.
I completely agree.
Meditation in our communities on Sundays, don't we? All the time. What are the tools, people? Prayer, meditation. What are the tools? Prayer, meditation. And that chilled me out so much, so that I am far less reactionary, if at all, in life now. And that used to be my norm in my 20s and 30s. I was really emotionally reactive towards everything. And I think sometimes it takes you get a little age on you before you think,
I think so.
I'm spending so much energy on this. Why?
Right. Yeah.
Why?
on
Not
what
worth it.
somebody else may or may not be doing. Correct.
Yes, may or may not. Yes, because I'm
May or may not.
perceiving they're doing something. I'm perceiving something offensive, or they're on the offense, so I have to be on the defense.
Right.
But it may not be that at all.
At all. At all. They may not have seen you at all. They may not be looking at you at all. That when someone says, "Hey, what do you think? What what was Kim saying? Kim who? What do you mean? Who's Kim?" Because you know what I mean? They were focusing on you. And you said something else that I love. You said, "I don't even have to respond. I don't have to say. I don't have to. I don't have to say anything back. Just because someone says something, what makes us think we need to respond? We don't. For some reason, we seem to think it's either rude or maybe weak on our side. Like we can't just be a chump and not say something. I don't know what all's going on in our heads. But just because someone says something, it's not a tit for tat. We don't have to respond. We're just going to go.
Mhm. Yeah. I was actually out to dinner with friends one night, and we were having a discussion about politics, and I think it was a 2016 election. It just happened, or maybe the election hadn't happened yet, but we had Trump was running and Biden, I guess, and or maybe I don't remember. So we're having this conversation, and I was being quiet because I didn't need to be in this. They were going back and forth, back and forth. I was hungry. I'm waiting for dinner.
Okay.
And I know when I am hungry or tired, I can be reactionary.
Exactly. Know
So
thyself.
I was just quiet and I'm listening to people. So as I'm sitting there being quiet, watching the tennis ball go back and forth across the table, listening to people talk, one of the women at the table turned and looked at me and she said, "Well, you're being quiet and you're sitting there like you voted for the other guy."
Oh my God. Now I'm
And I
sitting here
said,
like I'm hungry, waiting for food.
I think that's what I said. And then she said something else and her voice got louder. So here we are at a table eating dinner in a restaurant. Other people, of course, other tables around. She raised her voice and she said something. And I said, "It sounds like you're threatening me." And I'm just sitting here listening to the conversation. And so one of my other friends shut it down and she said, "Sharon, what are you doing?" Talking to the other woman. And so I'm thinking, what? I didn't say a word.
And yet you're pulled in.
But my silence was threatening. Well, that must mean. And I said, I means I'm sitting here waiting for dinner. That's what, and I'm
It means I'm
listening.
hungry.
But how rare is it these days that people are in watching or in the middle of a conversation and you find somebody who's just sitting and listening? Because most people are
Exactly.
talking over each other and doing this thing. And so well, what's wrong with you? That you're quiet. No, nothing's wrong with me. In fact, I'm just listening. I'm just quiet. I don't have, for me, there's no fight and I have no dog in the fight.
Okay. All right. Everybody good? No dog, no fight.
Can we just eat? Can we? And plus, why would I want to
Isn't that
do
what we're here
that?
for?
And I'm getting ready to have a meal. It's just not worth it. I came to enjoy this evening. So I don't, she was at me and I thought, just nothing going on here.
What I do? I'm just trying to eat here.
I think the one thing one time I used one of my husband's sentences. I got nothing right now. I got nothing.
I got nothing for
Just
you.
sitting here.
How this happened?
What happened? But yes, being responsible means that we check in with ourselves, and then we can decide with clarity, because we are thinking, our brain, not the reptilian brain, the brain and our wisdom is coming forward, this deep inner wisdom that we all have. But if we don't take a breath, and if we're not willing to be quiet and check in with ourselves, we don't know what the wisdom is that we might impart, or have the wisdom to just be quiet and just listen
right there.
to the conversation and begin to understand what is being said, what is behind what's being said, what is the feeling behind the words, what might we learn from what's being said. Even
Right.
if we learn this is not a group of people I want to talk to ever again.
Okay. And that could be the conclusion you come to, but you can't come to that unless you listen and there's just so many things I love what you just said because you're exactly right. It's like if we're not in the middle of the mix, somehow you're against something. I'm not against anything. I'm not for anything. I'm just trying to get a glass of water here. What?
Waiter,
How,
waiter, wait.
how did I check? How did how did this happen? And so yeah, so just to me, I think it's very very powerful that you know yourself and you don't feel the need to say or do anything if there's nothing to say or do that's going to add to the conversation. It's not going to add to it. There's no one will look at me or anyone who knows me will look at me and say that I'm afraid to speak my word, speak what's on my mind. That's never going to be something that's associated with Pjae. So if I'm sitting there quietly, you don't have to put anything on it. There's nothing there because if I wanted to say something, I don't need permission. I will say it.
Mhm.
If I'm not saying anything because I have nothing to say, I have nothing to add, I have nothing that I think that would add any clarity to what's already being said. I have no thoughts about this. I haven't thought about it enough to get in the conversation. Whatever
Yeah.
all the things that are going on in my head have nothing to do with what's going on in your head. In your head. And so vice versa. Vice versa. If if you because I was talking with my daughter the other day and she was upset about something her boss was saying. And I said to her, honey, what your boss was saying is about your boss. How is it about you? And she goes, oh yeah. Yeah. Well, how's it about you? Doesn't even know you. He just started. So you're making all kinds of assumptions about what he's saying, why he's saying it, how he's feeling
Mhm.
about it. You don't know anything. So
Yeah.
so we're very creative as human beings. We can create a story out of nothing. Nothing's
Oh,
happening. We got a
yes.
whole story going on. Oh my god.
Yeah. I don't know what it
Yeah.
is I read that said, we're making up everything anyway. Why don't we make up something positive?
How about that? Make it
Why don't
something
we make
good.
up a story that I'm not being threatened right now by this
Yeah.
conversation? And I can just sit here and listen, and perhaps there is something I could learn from the people I'm
So
listening
much.
to.
So much.
Yes.
When I'm really I go ahead.
Victoria just shared something. She said, do you think this is how acute polarization operates? You're either for or against. And I said, yes. And I love that.
Yeah.
That's the word instead of bipolar that I was looking for, acute polarization. And I think adding the adjective acute is really good here because we are in acute polarization. We used to just be polarized.
Yeah.
Now it's acute. And,
Yeah.
and now I can't believe some of the stuff I'm reading on social media now
Yeah.
from people that are surprising me. People that I thought I knew deeply to be one way, and then I'm reading things and I think, oh my gosh, I'm hearing so much and reading so many things that smack of arrogance, a lot of self-righteousness, um, thought superiority, like my thoughts are so much higher than yours. Um, People deeming other folks stupid,
Mhm.
um, uneducated. That word's being used that if you vote this way or that way, you have to be uneducated.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just incredible to me. So, some people I've read posts and I've gone, wow, never thought I'd hear this from them. And so it's just made me think more
Yeah.
about where we've come to in this nation. And free speech seems to have just gone out the window,
Yeah.
just gone out the window.
There
When
seems to be no.
I think it's one of our most valuable principles,
I think so too.
free
I think so
speech.
too. Now we're just shutting people down. And so you don't get to say whatever it is you want to say. Um, I don't know. I found myself reading like some news and just getting up, just getting all excited. You know what, Pjae? Stop reading this stuff because this is really so. What I'm finding out what I see, and this is just for me, I'm not saying it's what everybody says, but what I see is that I'm not so much reading or hearing about news so much as I'm reading about somebody who wants to be heard. So that,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? So they're saying things that
Mhm.
are inflammatory or in some way eg- egregious to just to get people to read what they've written,
Yeah.
and so they can get points or a group of people to listen, and get followers. And so I'm finding that I simply don't want to read that anymore because that you're not really looking for different pieces of opinion. You just want to say something inflammatory so that you can get a bunch of followers. And
Mhm.
so I find myself really backing away from this kind of reading, just so that I won't keep getting caught up and getting all shook up about I know what the truth is. I know no matter what seems to be happening, the truth is it's all good, it's all God, and I'm going to remember that about myself and about everyone that I'm dealing with, and love myself and us as a nation and everyone I'm dealing with. I'm gonna love us through it. I have to do that. There's nothing else that's gonna work any better than that. And so I am committed. I asked a person because they made a comment about something, and I wasn't familiar with it, and it was a pretty strong statement. I said, what do you mean? Why is that? And when I asked the question, what do you mean? Why is it? I mean, they jumped so high. They like, what do you mean? Because and they just really, and I said, okay, well, all right. Well, I'm not familiar with the situation, and that's why I'm asking you the question. I'm not on one side or the other. I'm not familiar with the
Mhm.
situation. And then they came back down and said, oh, well, and then I said, okay, so I can see why that what happened then. It was just amazing. I just asked it. Woo. Okay, hang on. Let me just share why I asked that. It
Yeah. Yeah. It's
was really out
interesting.
of curiosity. I had no agenda other than curiosity. What do you mean? Because it
Yeah.
seemed like a fairly innocent thing they were saying, but then they had jumped to what they were feeling about it. I thought, well, why? What do you mean? But why is it? Why is it this way? Hang on, just a minute.
Yeah.
That was a curious question, not a judgment question.
So in
Yeah,
our, gosh, how do we sum this up in the last minute
I
or
know,
so?
I know, I know.
I think it's really a matter, being responsible is a matter of being self-aware and self
Yes,
responsible, and not assuming that, always assume good intentions unless
I
we're
love that.
proven otherwise, and
Yes,
being open to people, and being willing to be wrong about something, maybe, or that possibly there's another way to see something, even
yes,
if it's not ours, and that
yes,
someone has a right to see something different, to believe something different than we do, and to be
right,
governed by things that we are not governed by, and to not make them wrong for that. It's
exactly.
just different. It's not wrong. It's just
Yeah.
different.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
The whole seeing things as one or the other, very polarized, right and wrong. There's no in between. There's just no differences of opinion. There's just no two, three, five, 20 ways to do something, to approach something. We live in a country where people have come from so many different disparate backgrounds that you can look at one issue and you can have 20 different ways in which to deal with it, all of them being viable, not right or wrong, viable, viable.
Yeah.
So, what if we looked at things in that way? And
Mhm.
oh, that's a viable solution. That's a viable solution. That's a viable comment. Thank you for that information. Not deciding on anything, just hearing it. Just we can't even hear anymore.
We can't
So,
even hear. We're not willing to listen, and to maybe consider that there's a both and, not a either or.
yeah. Oh, I love it.
Go
Yeah.
there and go
Both
there.
ends.
So, um, if you want more, find out more about the Real Talk Sisters, you can email us. We also have a website, realtalksisters.com. I'd love that we're going into the 4 agreements after this. We're going to do
Yes.
one agreement a week for the next 4 weeks, and which is such a great way to continue this discussion about being responsible and taking
Absolutely.
responsibility for ourselves in a conversation. So this was great, PJ. I love you, and I love how
I
we
love
come
you.
together and have these discussions.
Yes,
And Melinda,
great.
we wish
Thank
you
you,
the best.
everybody.
Always with you.
Absolutely. And thank you those of you who showed up and listened and asked questions and made comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Victoria. And Zoe, our producer, you're the best. We love you and could not do this without you. We'll see everybody next Tuesday.